Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to our Thursday morning Q&A on Rasa. So this is our time to come together, as we've been doing each week, and this is our fourth session, and I've just really been loving these sessions in so many ways. Beautiful sunset is pouring into the space here in Rishikesh, and as you can hear, I have a little bit of a grog in my voice, there's been some bugs being passed around here at the moment, but thank God for the gift of Ayurveda as it's moving quickly through the system. So good morning. I see various people hopping on. Good morning, good morning. Some of you in Europe also, so you're more in the afternoon. Good afternoon. Okay, I'm just going to wait a couple minutes as we start to hop on. There's already been a question that was sent in, which I will answer here. And then, as always, in the comments below, you can put any questions that you have arising, and we can work together with those. Maybe we can start off today with a chant as we wait for others to hop on. So there's this beautiful Dhanvantari chant. We've chanted it before together, even on these lives. Hi, Sunita. Namaste. And so this Dhanvantari chant, Dhanvantari is understood as the Lord of Ayurveda. There's a beautiful iconic symbol of Dhanvantari as well, form, and Dhanvantari is known to be the holder, the rishi, the great and first primordial doctor, really in many ways. But actually, when we chant to Dhanvantari, what we're really doing is we're chanting to our own natural intuitive wisdom of presence and of healing that is our very own birthright. So we're chanting to invoke and to awaken the healer that is our very own self, actually, nothing external to us. So maybe we can start with that today. So I'm going to welcome you, if you feel comfortable, to even bring the hands into Anjali Mudra, to bring them at the heart, and you can repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dhanvantaraye Amruta Kalashtaya. Sarva Maya Vinashaya. Trailokya Nadaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Namaha. Okay, let's come back together. This is actually a beautiful chant. In and of itself, those mantras have a vibratory impact upon every cell. So if we were even to chant this chant, which we actually have recorded a version that Lisa has chanted, and she has a much more beautiful voice than myself. So there's a beautiful chant in IGTV of Rasa. Lisa has chanted it, and it's in its completeness, this Dhanvantari mantra, and you could even play this each day and chant along with it. And what it's really doing is it's bringing the wisdom of Dhanvantari, that healing wisdom, to every cell of our being. So, and bringing everything back to harmony. So I would invite you to check that out. Okay, let's start then with the first question that I received. So this question was sent online, and this is a beautiful question. So she said, this is coming from Lindell, Yogi Mama, and she's asking, what does the art of the evening or the nighttime practice look like? My morning dinacharya, so for those of you who aren't familiar, dinacharya means daily routine. So my morning dinacharya is very difficult to practice daily, but my bedtime routine is where it's at for me. Thought I'd submit that for the morning Q&A. So this is a beautiful practice, and I think, as her name says on Instagram, she's a mama. So I work with a lot of mamas, and for a lot of mamas, the morning practice, this is why we chose this 7 a.m. time also, because we were hopeful that this doesn't compete, at least the 7 a.m. time in Eastern Standard Time, that it wouldn't compete with children going off to school and those kinds of things. So for a lot of mums, the morning time is difficult to have a really strong morning routine, right? Besides the strong morning routine you have with your children, which I want to say in and of itself is a beautiful dinacharya. It's a beautiful gift of Dharma when you've been called to be a parent, that part of your daily routine is your routine with your children. So they're not exclusive. It's not like, when you get your self-care time, that it's a selfish time. That means it's separate from the family or the space that you occupy and what you've been asked in your own life. So actually, dinacharya with children is beautiful. And we actually, at Rasa, we even have some beautiful videos of mamas scraping their tongues with their kids or various things. So I just want to say that firstly. And actually, there's a beautiful example that I've heard a few times now of especially mamas who have started some of the morning routine practices. And one of the morning routine practices is what we call gandusha. And gandusha is oil pulling. So you put oil into the mouth and you swish it and you pull it through the teeth. And you do this for about 15-20 minutes. And there are amazing benefits from this practice, not just for oral hygiene and health, but actually for the whole digestive tract. It helps to draw out toxicity, draw out ama, waste from the digestive tract to later be released. So after you do this oil pulling, you actually spit the oil out. But what I've heard from quite a few moms is, I love doing this morning practice, Tiffany, because it means my kids cannot really talk to me because they're not really going to get an answer, and everybody learns about morning silence. And then my kids want to do it as well. So that's just a beautiful example to let you all know. Lindell wasn't necessarily asking about this, but it's a beautiful example to show us the way we can have a little more time in the morning if we integrate it also with our kids. Okay, but her question was more about the art of the evening. So we do have an evening dinacharya. So part of dinacharya, part of the daily routine, includes both how we wake up in the mornings, how we move throughout the entirety of our day, and how we complete the day. And I would say even dinacharya is inclusive of how we sleep. So just even in and through the sleep, not just before we go to sleep. You see, this is how we've compartmentalized things, especially in our Western conditioning. There's an idea that the day is the day, the night is the night, and that we're awake only in the day. But from a Vedic context, it's very clear that the consciousness, that awareness, is ever present. There's a continuity. It's not like somebody is awake because the personality seems to be awake in the day, and then in the evening we die. Because we all know we don't die. Something is ever present and aware throughout all of this. So actually part of our daily routine is also how we sleep and how we go into that sleep. And this is what Lindell's asking about, which I think is very powerful. So part of the daily routine, part of dinacharya, is what we call ratri charya. So charya means routine or regimen. Acharya, interestingly, means to be founded in. So dinacharya, din, means day, or din means day. So to be founded in our days, or to have a routine, a daily routine. And ratri is the word for evening. So it means to have an evening routine. So our evening routine is in many ways just as important, if not ever more important, as our morning routine, because it's also going to necessarily determine how it is that we go into sleep, what quality of sleep we have, and where we're positioned as we go to sleep. And what I mean by that is whether or not we're positioned sort of in just a forgetfulness and a going into the slumber of unconscious sleep, or whether we go into a depth of aware sleep. And actually in the Vedic tradition, there are whole teachings around what we call Nidra Yoga, the yoga of sleep, which teaches us how to be awake and aware, even as the body and the mind may take rest. So for some of you, you're like, what? I don't know what she's speaking to. If this is entirely new for you, then ask more questions about Nidra Yoga, or come to a course, or come to our upcoming teacher training this summer in Peterborough, or there's lots of ways we can connect more about this. But the truth of Nidra Yoga is that it really teaches us how to be at yoga, how to be in union with life and with this very moment, even as we sleep. That there not be a forgetting or just a slipping into the realm of dreaming. So what can we do in our evening times to really complete the day, to integrate and release? We want to think about why we would have an evening routine, right? We want to complete the day in a certain energy. We want to release, and we also want to purge. So we want to be cleansing out any ama. So cleansing out any toxicity that's been accumulated throughout the day so that it doesn't take over and continue for the next day. So those are a couple of reasons. And then we also, as I was just mentioning, we want to be doing this or having an evening routine so that our sleep is really met in a very specific way. So what are some of the suggestions of Ratricharya, of an evening routine? Firstly, there are timings to the day. So there are time periods of 4-hour sections or periods throughout our 24-hour cycle that correspond to the different doshas. So they correspond to different elements. What does that mean? So in the evening, between 6 to 10 p.m., this is said to be the time of kapha dosha, which means it's the time of the elements of water and earth. So it's the more grounded time. Now this should make sense to us because if it's before sleep, we need it to be a time that's more grounded, that draws us more towards the earth. Now imagine if it was a time that was more vata dosha, which is more the dosha of air and space, then we'd be feeling uplifted, airy, spacey, light, and those wouldn't be great qualities for us to have before sleep. So that 6 to 10 p.m. is a window, and it's the best window for us to be practicing our Ratricharya, or rather for us to be living our Ratricharya, our evening routine. And so our evening routine needs to include some things during this time. The first thing is the time that we eat. And this, especially in the Western culture, as many of us know, and I myself also struggle with full days and especially in the summers when the sun is up for much longer as well. It's easier, I think, in the winter for some of us in the Northern Hemisphere, is that we tend to eat late because of also the focus upon doing, I would say, doing work, even kids doing extracurricular activities. There's so much activity happening that our meals get pushed later and later and later. Historically, in almost all cultures, there was more movement with the sun. Like now you can see as it's hitting my face in this moment, we're having a beautiful sunset at this very moment. It's 5:45 here in Rishikesh. And so this time is the time when it's really good to be winding everything down and moving towards the last meal, really. So it's the time when the last meal is really important for us to have. Now, the second thing that arises with this is that a lot of us don't have meals at 6. We have meals at 7, 7:30, 8, when we're deep and thick into the time of kapha and our digestion is heavy. Because that kapha time means that everything's a bit more slow and grounded. So if we put a huge meal into our system at that time, imagine how long it'll take for that meal to move. And if that meal carries into our sleep, we're digesting during our sleep, we're having to digest a lot, and we may not digest well, and it may actually mean that it establishes as toxicity in the system, and it also becomes undigested material that then has to be processed even more the next day. It's even known in the Vedic tradition that if it sits within our system in this way, if we have late meals, that it can contribute to nightmares because the energy is so heavy that's in our system. So this is one thing that the meals go later, but another thing that culturally a lot of Westerners have gotten used to is that the dinner time becomes the biggest meal. When in fact, according to these time periods of the day, and according to Ratricharya, this evening routine, in fact, that meal should be the meal that is the lightest. You see, I've told you, because we have limited time with these Q&As, but if you join, for example, the Ayurveda online, we go through all of these things together. I've told you that this 6 to 10 p.m. is kapha time. Well, the time between 10 to 2, whether it's in the afternoon or 10 to 2 late at night, that's the time that corresponds to pitta dosha, which is the fire element. And 10 to 2 in the afternoon, which is the time of lunchtime, is the most heated, active, best time for our digestion. And so because of that, it's actually suggested in the Vedic tradition, and not just that, in almost every tradition around the world, we find that people followed this rhythm, that time in the midday is the time when we should have the biggest meal, because the sun in our bellies matches the sun planetarily. And so what that means is that our digestion is more alive at that time. And so having our biggest meal is best then. and our lightest meal later in the day, and our second biggest meal, so as dinner, and our second biggest meal at breakfast time. So this is one of the first things that I would suggest with Ratricharya, is that we have a lighter, earlier meal, and that will already change the quality of how we go to sleep and what quality of sleep we have. So many individuals today, more than ever, are dealing with issues of insomnia. Whether that's insomnia in the difficulty in getting to sleep, or insomnia in that we wake up in the middle of the night and it's hard for us to get back to sleep. I'm wondering how many of you might even be dealing with that are on the call. It's much more than in the past, and I hear about it daily, really, from various individuals. I'm just going to close this a little bit because I noticed that the sun is coming in really strongly. So this would be one of my first suggestions for Ratricharya, would be around the meal time, what we do as far as meals. Now, other things that we can do. So some of the contributors of Dinacharya, of daily morning routines, we can also do in the evening. So some of you, like I was mentioning, oil pulling. If you want to do oil pulling a second time in the day, or this is the time when you can do it, then do your oil pulling now. So you'll use either a sesame oil, or you can use a coconut oil, or you might use an oil like we have at Rasa, which is an oil that we've formulated that has turmeric and neem and various things in it, so that the mouth and the digestive system from the day, whatever's entered in, will be helped to be sort of cleansed out. Now, what I want to say is that Gandusha, this oil pulling, should always be done on an empty stomach. So don't do it on a full stomach. So it can be done later in the day. Or later after dinner, a couple hours or a few hours after. But what other kinds of things can we do in the evening as far as Ratricharya? Well, this is a great time for us also to do things like having an aromatherapy bath. So this can be very, very helpful for our quality of sleep and also for cleansing and purging the body. So having a time of bathing in the evening. Having a time also where we take medicine. So how can we take medicines? So taking specific herbs at that time can be a part of our daily routine, which is wonderful. And two easy ways that I suggest to take herbs in the evenings. One is through something like a golden milk, especially in wintertime. All of you may there also in your own countries be dealing with an influx of viruses and flus, and of course around the globe presently, a lot of us are dealing with fear around coronavirus. And with this, we really want to be taking things that are immunoboosters and adaptogens. So taking something like a golden milk, increasing our turmeric intake, maybe putting into it something like ashwagandha. Ashwagandha is a great adaptogenic herb that can really help to keep us strong and vital. You see, rest is really important when we talk about staying immune from some of these things. So really getting deep rest. So all of this should contribute to that. And turmeric as well as ashwagandha in something like a warm milk, whether it's non-dairy or dairy, with a little bit of honey, really will promote sleeping. As well as a pinch of nutmeg. Nutmeg is an excellent one that has a tranquilizing effect on the system. And so it can really help the system to go into deep restfulness. So that is one way I would suggest in Ratricharya, in our evening routine, to take herbs. And another one that I would suggest is Triphala. For many individuals, Triphala is a great tonic to take daily. Triphala, or Triphala, has 3 different fruits in it. And these 3 different fruits, although they're not very tasty, they have a lot of bitterness and astringency and some sourness to them, they help to really cleanse ama, cleanse waste out of the system, which means they take the old, they take it and they allow the system to be emptied of it. And so Triphala is very helpful in cleansing and balancing the digestive system and also cleansing the eliminatory system. So Triphala can be taken about a half an hour before bed, half a teaspoon of Triphala churna, which is Triphala powder, mixed in just a small 4-ounce glass of water, warm water. Because it's quite a strong taste, I suggest less is more. So 3 or 4 ounces of warm water, take it down the hatch, and you can follow up with a second small glass of warm water. And then you'll notice when you take your second glass of water that the Triphala taste actually becomes a little bit sweeter. So it's a little less strong in the mouth. This is something that from my own Ayurvedic Guruji has been such a boon, such a gift, such a blessing. And I use it with so many individuals, especially those of us in the West who have more pollutants introduced through our foods, maybe through our air. It depends on where we're living or what it is that we're intaking, but it really helps us to empty out of the old and to move into sleep with freshness. Now, another thing with Ratricharya, and then please put if you have other questions, because I'm spending some time on this one. Another thing with Ratricharya is the time we go to bed. So as I said before, that 6 to 10 should really be preparing us to move towards bed. So some things we don't want to be doing that during that time. We don't want to be engaging in excessive or extreme movement. So it's not the best time for those of you who are used to going to the gym at this time and doing a lot of intense cardio. It's actually not the best time to do that because, as you know, this will wake up and stimulate the nervous system. So this is a better time to do something like restorative yoga, or to put on your favorite Nidra Yoga audio maybe and lie down and receive the gift of that, or just to lie down in Shavasana and to let the whole body, so lie down in a relaxation pose on the back and allow the whole body from the top of the head down to the tips of the toes to really relax. Intensive exercise at this time is not really suggested, nor is intensive exercise for the mind. So the other thing with Ratricharya is that we really want to avoid any kind of super engaging or I would just want to say intensifying kind of mental activity. So arguments, not a great time to have arguments, not that it's any time is a great time to have an argument, but if heated discussions start to occur during this time, part of our Ratricharya, our evening routine, can be a commitment to say, let's just shelve this and maybe speak about this tomorrow. So whether that's with a family member or that's also with a colleague, to just really not try to be engaging in that. Another thing is, when I mention work, to not be working during these hours. So a lot of us have allowed our work to move into the later hours of the day, and this is affecting our sleep so much. A third thing is the engagement with social media and the TV. So there's so much engagement, like so many of us today are reading so many things about, it might be coronavirus or things that are happening around the world, or news, the nightly news. And what that actually does is it stimulates and it fires up the mind, so we're not really ready for this restful sleep. So you really want to wield your sort of internal node of commitment to how you want to spend those last hours of the day, and really say, I'm going to shelve any intense exercise, whether it's physical or intense engagement also mentally, avoiding work or engagements with others during that time, or really even reading or watching anything that's intensive. And the other thing I want to say around that, and doubly highlight now, is that with social media, I often ask clients, I ask patients, for 2 hours before you go to bed, can you make a commitment to not be looking at any of your social media or looking online in general? So not doing emails, not being on Instagram or Facebook or any of those things. And this can really change your sleep patterns in so many ways. Even just the lights of these things, the EMFs of these things are so vata inducing. They create such a vata vitiation, such a vata imbalance, that they leave us spaced out. And that spaced out feeling contributes to both quantity and quality of sleep being very illy affected. So I would suggest also some detox from computers and from all of those things, devices, 2 hours before we go to bed. And then the last thing I want to say about Ratricharya for this evening, 2 other things I want to suggest. So one other thing is your bedtime. Try to make your bedtime around 10 p.m. If possible, really try to commit to that. And you know, what's easier for us to do is to set our alarm for the morning so that it pressures us to go to sleep at a certain time. And what I mean by that is you can say to yourself and have so much good intention, I'm going to go to bed every night at 10 p.m. But then, you know, you can let it slide, and then you might still wake up at 7 or 8. But if you start waking up every morning at 6, you'll be tired by 10. This is usually what happens. So you can start setting your alarm earlier in the mornings, which will allow the evening sense of naturally falling to sleep to be there. And then the last little Ratricharya suggestion for today, put a little bit of sesame oil onto the bottoms of the feet, especially warm can be wonderful, onto the bottoms of the feet. And you can put a little bit of lavender or clary sage or cedar wood oils. Those are all really great oils for grounding. and for peaceful, restful sleeps. You can take a few drops of that and also rub that onto the bottoms of the feet and around the feet, and then put little thin socks on, especially in winter season, and go to sleep. So you can even have that on your bedside table. And this is a wonderful, what we call pada abhyanga, foot oil application that helps to ground us before sleeping. So I hope that this answers not just Lindell's question, but it answers for a lot of you what I see as one of our major contributors towards illness actually today, because we don't sleep. Actually, in Ayurveda, one of the three, or there are 3 pillars to good health, and one of those 3 pillars is sleep, in fact. And so the more we take care of our Ratricharya, our evening routine, the more we're also taking care of this pillar of sleep. I see there's another couple of questions that are arising here. Can you speak, from Sasha, can you speak to sore feet first thing in the morning, why this might occur, that pain occurs for the first several minutes of being on feet, and what we can do? Legs up the wall, foot massage at night, great. So it's directly correspondent to what I was just saying. I would definitely suggest, Sasha, that you do this foot massage at night, and then even in the morning to do it again. This can be a Vyana Vayu issue. So this can be a Vata issue in which Vyana Vayu, the circulatory wind or the circulatory air, the circulatory Vata moving throughout the body is not circulating properly. Something's happening during sleep. So when we first wake up, we might actually give a little bit of Pada Abhyanga, give a little bit of foot massage, give a little bit of massage down into the legs. And then yes, legs up the wall is a great idea. I think that's really a beautiful idea. But this is most likely occurring because of an issue around that. It could be around some circulation issues. It could be something else, but this is my guess in this moment. So those are a couple things that you could do around that. There are actual pathologies around this as well in Western medical science, where some will wake with extreme pain into the feet and to the legs. So with blood clotting, or also with circulation issues. So if it's something more severe like that, then please contact either myself or another practitioner in your life. Okay, and Kimberly is asking, my khichdi doesn't get quite smooth. The lentils remain a bit hard. Do you have any suggestions to get the texture smoother? Yeah, beautiful. So for those of you who don't know, khichdi is a wonderful complete meal, and it's known as one of the most pacifying, soothing, restoring meals that we offer in Ayurveda. We use it in so many different cases. It can be wonderful even just to have a khichdi diet once a month for 3 days, really as a digestive reset. But I also just suggested it yesterday with a prenatal patient for the postpartum time, for the 40 days after she's given birth, because it's just such a nourishing and complete and wholesome and nurturing meal. So it usually combines rice with mung beans and then some vegetables and spices. And so the best way that we can get it a little bit smoother, Kimberly, is firstly to soak. So you really want to soak everything the night before. Soak the rice and soak the lentils, or soak the mung beans. And then it really looks like cooking it for longer. So if they're still remaining somewhat hard, you might just cook it for longer to the point that actually the rice breaks down and becomes kind of creamy in it. If you don't like that, if you still like that the rice remains somewhat in it, then what you can do is you can soak the mung beans for longer. So for example, you might soak the mung beans for 14 or 16 hours and just soak your rice for 2 or 3 hours. And then you can even put your mung beans in for about a half an hour to start cooking with the spicing and everything before the rice. So that's another way. But otherwise, that soaking, in which you soak the mung beans for longer, should be helpful in getting this creamier texture. And another one is, oftentimes in India, a pressure cooker is used, although with a pressure cooker, what we're doing is we're keeping some of the vata inside. We're keeping some of the air and gas inside. So it is good if you do have sort of an open top, or you can at least have a pot where you release some of the gas of the lentils, some of the air. So I don't necessarily suggest that, but I'm just wondering if sometimes when you've had khichdi in the past, it might have been in a pressure cooker, because that really cooks it in such a dense way. that sometimes you get that creamier texture. But otherwise, try cooking for a little bit longer, okay, as well. Some people also like to pulse their khichdi a little bit afterwards with a hand and immersion blender. So that's another option if you really like that creamier texture, and adding a little bit more water as well as oil. You know, people are always shocked when I'm sharing how I make my khichdi, or I'm showing them, I'm cooking with them, because I put a whole bunch of oil into my khichdi. So it's actually a carrier also of unctuousness, and so it brings this quality of oil into the body. So don't be shy with the oil that you add. We are a couple minutes over for our time this morning, this evening, wherever you are in the world. But I'm just wondering if there are any other questions. Oh, I'm seeing there was one last question from Elena from Sattva. She says, which tailam, so which oil, would you recommend for a pitta vikruti showing itself through very sensitive red skin, itching especially in the evening when going to bed? So tailam is usually the word we use for oil, but actually tailam comes from til, and til is the Sanskrit word for sesame. So tailam actually meant sesame oil, and then we would say, Mahanarayan tailam. So that would mean it's a Mahanarayan, so it's actually revering to a god, but a great, the great one. But it would actually be in a base of sesame oil. In this case, when it's a pitta vikruti showing itself through sensitive red skin with itching, especially in the evening when going to bed, I would suggest more coconut oil. So actually, that's not exactly what we call tailam. In fact, in Kerala, they have a different name, a whole different name actually, for oils that are made with coconut oil, because in Kerala, which is a beautiful state that has maintained so much of the tradition of Ayurveda, and I really feel grateful to have also had some time to train there. And so they use a lot of coconut oil, both in their cooking and coconut in their cooking, but also coconut oils in the treatments and in the oils. So I would definitely suggest a coconut oil, and I would also secondarily suggest the herb mangista. So mangista is a wonderful herb that helps to decrease pitta conditions, especially in the skin, whether taken internally or applied externally. So even mixing a little bit of mangista churna, this may be the simplest way, into an oil, so a mangista powder into a coconut oil and applying that onto the body, or gently in a double boiler, so the bottom is hot water and the top is your coconut oil with your mangista powder, gently bringing that to a simmering for about a half an hour to an hour. So letting that sort of not boil, but gently be simmering, and then straining it out so you no longer have any grains of the herb. This is a wonderful oil that can be used on pitta, sort of sensitive skin bodies. And the ratio that I would say for that in your coconut oil that you're using is, say you do 2 cups of coconut oil in your upper pot, then do about a half a cup of mangista churna. So for 2 cups, do about a half a cup of mangista churna, gently simmer it for half an hour to an hour if you have that time, and then strain it out. Any further questions that are arising for anyone? Anything that's arising? I'm having the sense that that these Q&As are getting longer and we have more and more people joining. So my feeling is that they may start to become an hour, in fact. Maybe 7 a.m. is also a bit early for some of you to hop on, but it's a true joy for me to be with you in this way each week, and I hope that it's of benefit to each and every one of your lives. And we'll continue together next Thursday. So let's conclude for a moment, as we have the other weeks. Let's conclude with a chant together. I would invite you to chant with me a beautiful Shanti Pata, a beautiful chant that asks, may all beings be free. May all beings be free of illness. May all beings be free of suffering. And may all beings truly be free to know who they are. So I would welcome you to chant in repetition after me, if this is something that feels comfortable for you. You can bring hands to heart. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve santu nirahamaya. Sarve bhavani bhadrani pashantu. Ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhave. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May all beings truly, truly be free. May this gift of Ayurveda really, truly come into each and every one of our lives and shine and spread outwards for the benefit of all. Thank you so much also for making way for my crackling voice this morning, as I too am benefiting from the gift of Ayurveda and overcoming this bit of a virus that I've caught here on Indian soil. Thank you. I see many thank yous. Oh, you're so welcome. Such a joy to be with all of you. And we will see each other again next Thursday at this time, 7 a.m. EST. Okay, have a beautiful rest of your day, everyone. Namaste.